Hello learners, welcome to today's session. The topic which we are talking about today is environmental effects of improper waste disposal. This topic is a part of the course MEV 051, which is the course code, and the title of the course is Overview of Waste Management. This course is a part of PG Diploma in Waste Management program. Learners, you are aware about the issue of the waste, but still we are not clear. What is waste? How do we define it? What does it contain? And what happens if we do not deal with it in a scientific, regulated manner? So one by one, let us see. First of all, we will see that what is waste? How do we define it? Then we will discuss some of the sources from where the waste is generated. And during the later part of the presentation, we will discuss about the environmental effects of improper waste disposal. That is, when we do not handle it properly, when there is no proper scientific management of waste, then what environmental issues can arise and how does it affect the human health, the community and society at large. So, beginning with very common term waste. It is a term which we use in a everyday life. We all are aware of this word. And when I ask you what is waste, the simple answer which comes back is something which I do not need. Some substances, some objects which are discarded, which do not have any use, any utility value, that is a waste for us. So, when you think about in that sense and you look around, you will find that yes, there are, when you do something, when you manufacture something, when you are commuting, when you are traveling, when you are doing any job, you will come across various types of waste materials which are being generated. So broadly speaking, when we categorize the waste, yes, there are solid waste, there is a liquid waste, and also there are gaseous waste. The harmful gases which are being emitted into the atmosphere out of combustion of engines and all, that is a gaseous waste. Then we have the radioactive waste, the toxic waste. Various categories of the waste have come up today. So, but before we talk about the management and with the advent of industrialization and so far how much we have progressed, we are in the IT era now. What we are witnessing is that not only the nature of the waste, the composition of the waste, but also we are finding the variety which has come into the basket of the waste. So before we discuss all these things, let us go through some of the common definitions of the waste, because unless and until you understand that what is that which is discarded, you will not be able to understand that what value does it have or how we can process it, dispose it or manage it. So first definition you can see on the screen, which is according to Basel Convention. These are the substances or objects which are disposed of or are intended to be disposed of or are required to be disposed of by the provisions of the law. It says that anything which is hazardous, which is dangerous, which doesn't have any utility, which should be disposed of, which has to be disposed of, and which requires to be disposed of, that is the waste. Now the electronic items, the nuclear waste, the various types of the harmful products which are released as a byproduct by any industrial processes, that is a waste. According to OECD, waste are substances or objects other than radioactive materials covered by other international agreements which are disposed of or are being recovered, are intended to be disposed of or recovered, or are required by the provisions of national law to be disposed of or recovered. Let us not go into the complexities of the definitions and the terminologies and various aspects of the waste which are related today. What we have to understand that in today's times, we say that there is nothing like as waste. It is something which is any object which we have not been able to utilize it fully, or any substance which is waiting for recognition, some use, that is a waste. So in today's times, it's simply saying we can add to it that any substance which potential is yet to be recognized or we have not utilized it completely is normally termed as waste. So therefore now there are various researchers which say that the term waste should be replaced by the resource, and there is nothing like it waste management. It is actually a resource management because it has a value associated with it. It has a not only the environmental value, because today we will be discussing about the environmental effects, but also it has an economic value, it has a social value. So likewise, what the pressing problem today is that whether you call it a discarded object or whether we call it as a resource which is waiting for recognition, one thing is very much sure, that we are facing a crisis due to enormous waste generation. Plastic, paper, electronic items, glass items, metal items, all the types of the waste which are being generated are increasing at an alarming numbers, alarming volumes. And therefore, what problem we are facing today is that we do not have sufficient technical abilities and the expertise and also the space and the infrastructure to manage it in a proper manner. So according to, if you go by the estimates, around 2 billion tons of solid waste is generated annually, and it is expected to increase by 70% by 2050. So you find cardboards, you find plastic wraps everywhere, you find biodegradable organic substances. These are the categorization of the waste which we are seeing all around. So basically, if you look around and you want to classify, you will find that yes, there are certain waste which are biodegradable. There is a leftover food, there are fruits and vegetable peelings, there is a horticultural waste, there is an agricultural waste. These are the types of the waste which are biodegradable in nature and which are organic. They get to be composted, or we have to devise a suitable strategy to manage this waste. If you look at the industrial processes, you will find the nature of the waste is very toxic. It is like containing lot of metals, lot of heavy metals and these type of articles. We cannot keep them on the land for long. We cannot allow it to be thrown in the water bodies and it enters the soil, it pollutes the underground water. Then at the other hand, you will find a lot of plastic bottles used, plastic polythene bags used. Now in this category, you will find that there are certain plastics which are recyclable. We have to collect it, segregate it and devise a methodology for its proper recycling. Then you have certain plastics which are non-recyclable. Similarly, you will find paper which is generated in the huge amounts. You will find the electronic items, and these electronic items also need to be recycled by authorized recycling agencies. So what these examples show us that the variety, the heterogeneous nature of the waste which is generated by the various sources. And why waste management is an issue today, why it has increased so much, is because our consumption has increased. Look at the way we consume, the way we buy. A lot of online shopping has become a trend. With the online shopping, it is like we are paying more for the packaging than for the product. And whenever the product arrives at your place, you find lot of cardboard, lot of plastic being tied to it. So there is increase in consumption with, of course, the factor is the increase in population. Affluence has increased. The purchasing power of the people have increased. And therefore, people tend to buy more. And therefore, when you buy more, you tend to waste more. The changing nature, volume and composition of the waste. There was a time when the waste was organic in nature and most of it was like kept on the land for long or thrown in the water body, and the nature was in a capacity to take care of itself. But with changing times, what we are seeing today, if you take the example of the plastic, it is there on the planet for millions of years. It does not degrade, it does not disintegrate, and such examples are coming more and more. So we have the waste materials, and the composition of the waste is such which is unlikely in the earlier times. Now the wastes which are being generated by various institutionals, industrial and other commercial purposes, they tend to be there in the environment for long. They do not degrade, they live as such, and the volume has also increased, and there is a crisis of the land. We do not have land to dispose this waste. There's a crisis of the landfills, and therefore don't ever assume that landfills are an answer, because landfills, we do not have that much of space. We need land for agriculture, we need land for infrastructure building, we need land for the residential purposes and for various other purposes. So there's a crisis of the land. So there is no throwing away, which was the trend earlier. That is the problem. And most importantly, why waste management is an issue today, because we are finding it to be affecting our health, and because of the microplastics, because of the hazardous substances, because of the toxicants which are associated with these waste products, these harmful agents are entering into our bodies through air, through food, through contaminated water, and so on. And therefore, today it is the high time that we devise proper solutions to the waste management, and we see that how we can manage it properly. Apart from it, there are other causes which are responsible for the enormous waste generation. Is increase in packaging. You find your small article to be packed and in the layers of the paper, plastic, ropes and so on. The product durability has been down. The products get outdated very quickly. They get obsolete very quickly. There is an economic growth, consumerism, and mass consumption. See, all these factors, we are all witness to all these things. We see all around that there is the reduced tendency of the products to be repaired or to be replaced. Most of the times what we are observing is that there is a trend to buy more, because the market is flooded with the products. And there is a various options available before the consumer, that you can choose anytime. You can order online, you can get it replaced after some time. So all these factors trigger buying behavior. And why? First of all, when you the situation that the most of the waste is not handled in a proper manner. We have to see that despite knowing that it is dangerous, it is harmful to the health, and it is generated in huge amounts, why the improper disposal of the waste take place? Why there is the huge mountains of the trash that we see outside our cities? Why this is a common sight, that our rivers are filled with filth and all sorts of harmful substances? The number one cause is the lack of infrastructure and awareness. We ourselves don't know. We are less sensitive to cleaning our cities. We are very much particular about cleaning our homes. But when it comes to our city, when it comes to our rivers, when it comes to common places, we are less aware. We don't know the consequences of our actions which we are doing today. And we do not have optimum capacity to deal with the waste. For example, we know that agricultural, horticultural waste can be composted, but at various points we face the hurdles as where to compost. We know that the waste which is generated from our kitchens in our homes is biodegradable. That should not be mixed with other municipal waste. But do we have any mechanism of composting in our societies? Do we find composters easily available in our surroundings? Do we have any mechanism by which the waste is segregated and collected, and is it so easy process? That is a problem. There's a weak regulatory enforcement despite having solid waste management rules 2016 and the consequent amendments which take place year after year. Still, we are not able to implement it. There is rapid urbanization and industrialization and unplanned waste collection system. So, when you dispose the waste in an improper manner, there are causes of land pollution. Where the waste is dumped on land, this is staying for long. It percolates into the groundwater. It makes the soil unfit for agriculture. And this type of soil where lot of toxicants have accumulated over the years and agriculture is practiced, we find traces of these toxicants in our fruits, in our vegetables, in other agricultural crops that we are growing, and they enter into our bodies. There are heavy metals, there are pesticides, all these types of, you can say, the pollutants, they are damaging the quality of the soil, and therefore it is not advisable at all to propose such type of waste disposal measures where the waste unsegregated is lying on the ground, which is there for several hundred years. Because over the period of time, where the landfills are there, the methane gas is generated, there are toxicants which are peeping in, there are the fires which are taking place on the landfill. These are the common things which we come across mostly. Then you must be knowing about the leachate. Leachate is the toxic liquid which is formed when the waste is dumped on a piece of land for a long period of time. This toxic liquid percolates into the groundwater. It contaminates the groundwater, and also when there is a practice of throwing plastic, paper or biodegradable waste into our river bodies, it pollutes the surface waters also. Therefore, we know that marine pollution is taking a toll on the health of these ecosystems and the aquatic biodiversity of the oceans. And in the huge oceans, you will find there is a trench where plastics have clogged. You will find these plastics which are there in the water bodies. An estimate suggests that by 2050 there will be more plastic in the oceans than the number of the fishes. That is bad. That is actually disturbing. We are not only polluting the land we are living, but we are adding plastic and other pollutants deep into the Mariana Trench, to the higher mountains, to the Antarctic region even has got traces of plastic. So this way, even the water bodies are getting polluted. Our rivers are full of all these type of toxicants. They come from various sources. They come from industries, they come from agriculture, they come from the municipal waste which is dumped like that. They come through leachate and the various other sources. Many a times, one of the most important method of disposing the waste is burning it. And the practice is very common, especially during the winters. When there's a huge pile of the waste is being accumulated, there is fruits, vegetables, peelings, plastic, paper, and all other sanitary waste and so on. And mostly the people burn it. When the waste is burnt, it is a mix of the chemicals which are coming. It is forming a cocktail of pollutants which is inhaled by the residents who are living nearby, and therefore it is a classic example of how improper waste disposal leads to air pollution. Then the landfills. Mostly the landfills are the most common method by which the waste is disposed, and here you find methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas, is released due to anaerobic decomposition of the organic waste at the landfills. This is one of the reasons. And also at the landfills there is a smoke coming out. You must have heard about this thing that landfills get fires very quickly. So because of the lying waste, because of the temperature conditions, and because of the dry weather, many a times, especially during the summers, the fire catches and it leads to pollution, because it remains unattended, because it is a barren piece, it is a piece of land where only the loads of trucks dispose their waste on such places. Every day, more than 80 trucks, 100 trucks in a big cities, you will find they are dumping the waste at that site. So you can imagine what would be the situation. Then also the biodiversity and the birds, the aquatic biodiversity we have just now discussed, they also get affected when we do not manage our waste in a proper manner. You must have seen the pictures where the cows have ingested plastic, thinking it to be some food item. Marine birds, especially, they eat plastic jellies and all that, thinking like it is a kind of an edible insect or like that. Sea turtles, they mistakenly eat plastic, assuming it to be a jellyfish. It poses threat to the health of these animals. And not only the examples of plastic are there, but other toxicants also, other waste materials which are discarded like that, they are eaten up by these organisms, and in many cases extreme incidents may also occur, and it is actually an imbalance in our ecosystems. And of course, we as human beings are affected because our health is compromised, and we have seen microplastics. Microplastics enter into our bodies through respiration, because the air is also not pure. It contains these minute particles and they enter into our lungs. They cause respiratory disorders. They lead to cardiovascular problems, and yes, we find incidence of cancers increasing nowadays. And it is because of the toxicants, which are used, manufactured, and then thrown away, lying unattended, and ultimately it enters into our bodies. So not only the extreme cases, diseases happening, but altogether also you will find that there are incidences of skin problems, and especially vulnerable are the workers. You'll find small children, women, early in the morning collecting the recyclables from the heaps of the waste. Now, what a common sight it is in the urban India. But look at the health. They do not have any mechanism to protect themselves. They manually touch the waste heap. They take out the recyclables from it. And in this exercise, they burn themselves, they hurt themselves, and they also get exposed to various types of harmful gases. And you must have seen how people live near the landfill sites. So these landfill sites, there are people living nearby. They are forced to live in such harsh conditions where they are breathing impure air, where they are using the contaminated water. So that is also waterborne diseases, vector-borne diseases, they become very common. And the socio-economic effects, because as we were discussing, that it is not just an environmental problem, but it is a social issue as well, because it creates a disparity in the society, and as a classic example of environmental justice, because nobody wants to live near a waste collection site or a waste disposal site, and people are now protesting against these things. And it gives rise to a situation where there is a conflict type of thing arising. People who are disadvantaged, who are marginalized, are forced to live under such conditions. And there is also a kind of an economic burden associated with it, because when you throw away something, when you have manufactured something and then after utilization you are throwing it, so it is not only like an environmental issue, but also there is a cost associated with it. There is a energy you have taken, you have consumed the resources, there is time utilization, and if you are not finding any value out of it, then it is a waste of the resources. Mining takes place, you mine the minerals, you manufacture something, and then ultimately what happens is that it is of no use. So that is the concept behind the circular economy, where we want everything in circularity. So we have to give end to that earlier linear model and think about how you can bring in circularity, how resources can be utilized again and again. And climate change, this is very few studies have been conducted, but it is established that increase in the waste generation is also one of the causes of increase in the temperature and climate change which is taking place, because harmful gases, methane, which is a greenhouse gas, is released from the dump sites, and therefore we must think that how we can, because there is nothing which is in isolation. Every action of us has a consequence. All are related with each other. And at one end, if we are able to address the issue of improper waste disposal, then it will not be an economic or environmental benefit, but in the long run also, if you are facing the challenges of climate change or natural disasters occurring too frequently, it will also be helpful. We will be able to address those issues as well, which are in the long run. So what is important for us to see that how treatment is one end, but how proactive we can be. So segregation is most important. We have to segregate it properly. Think about how you can recycle, go for composting wherever possible, and make an eco-friendly decision before buying something. So if you have a choice when you are buying something, think of the option which has less waste footprint, which should not waste much. If you're getting something which comes in huge packaging, which has lot of other materials associated with it, which has a long carbon footprint, think that how you can reduce this and how you can play your role in minimizing the waste generation, and then you have to think less about its proper management. So we can conclude that improper waste disposal, we have seen various examples. It affects the environment, it affects our health, it has a burden on the society as well. And most importantly, collective responsibility is for sure playing the most important role. And the punchline is that every stakeholder, every member of the society has a role in it, because it is generated by us. We have our responsibility, we are accountable, and waste is not waste until we waste it. So remember, learners, this is something which is an important takeaway for today, that improper disposal of the waste should be minimized, should be addressed at any cost. Thank you. Thank you so much.